Hi, this is Pat McDonald, your host for Vote for Vermont, where our tagline is Listening Beyond the Soundbites. Jennifer Harrison is with me today to co-host. Jennifer, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we're continuing with our candidate interviews, and joining us today is Tomas Cummings, who's an independent. He's running for the Vermont House of Representatives for Chittenden 03. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
A newbie. A new guy on the campaign trail. Sorry you picked this particular year, though, because it's hard to do some of the stuff that people expect us to do when we're out campaigning. So could you talk a little bit about yourself and let folks know who you are?
Sure. I've been a teacher for 30 years. I'm running as an independent candidate for the House of Representatives, and I'm my experience in education is one of the primary reasons I wanted to be involved in Montpelier.
Right.
Public education during COVID has kind of had a light, definitely a positive light put on it, and the importance and value of it. So I want to make sure that I'm.
How did your area? Could you told me the two areas that you are representing. What are they?
Jericho and Underhill is.
So how did Act 46 manage to do over there? In your, did you merge or have you done anything?
No, we didn't. So Mount Mansfield Union is where my kids have attended.
Right.
I actually work for the Burlington School District, so I'm in a little different.
Oh, interesting. But you do special ed, which is, God bless you.
Yeah, I've had a wonderful. It's been a great career, and it's coming to an end. But I've really enjoyed working with students and their families these last 30 years.
Special ed is a big issue when we're talking education, and the cost of it, because there's the expectation on the parents' part of what one should provide and spend on their child who is a special needs child. And it's pretty expensive. I used to work as Deputy Commissioner of Education for a few years under David Wolk.
Ah, yes.
So I've met some of those parents, and they fight for their kids, and God bless them for that.
Yeah. And that is what's a lot of people, I think, get nervous or uncomfortable with advocates that come into the schools and demand and support their parents. But a lot of good things have come out of it.
I bet. So,
hopefully my superintendent isn't listening to that.
Yeah, but that's
but
it's a parent's
it's the
role.
truth of it.
It's a parent's job. Fight for your kids.
Right.
Yeah.
And as a parent of two, I completely understand.
There you go. Good.
Hi. So what are your top priorities that you're discussing with your voters that you'd like to take to the legislator?
So I'm talking with folks, and I have to explain talking. It's basically my neighbors, because COVID has really changed the landscape for having these conversations.
You think so?
Oh, wow. It's been all the reminders, don't go knocking on doors, don't, stay away from, like at the farmer's market, you're not supposed to linger, you move along. And it's just a very different time. Yeah. Our community always has something called Harvest Market in late September.
Oh, really?
It's
nice.
It's like a town-wide event, canceled this year. Oh. And I live right on Route 15 in the middle of that event.
Do you really? Yeah.
So I had every intention of talking to people, and a lot of people. 10,000 plus people.
So I don't want to get you off the priorities, but how have you been reaching out to your constituents? I mean,
conversations with neighbors. When restaurants locally opened up,
right.
I would talk with folks there. I have a website, and my kids are trying to help me with the whole social media piece.
Oh yes, right now.
I'm not so hot at that.
No, I know. But, it's hard.
Are you doing Zoom and Instagram?
I actually Facebook and Twitter are the two.
Well,
that's
you're one up on me. I don't do Twitter.
Have you done a Zoom call?
I've done a lot of them for my job.
Yeah.
I do a number of them.
Yeah. Well, you've been teaching by remote,
Google Meets. Yeah. So remote learning started last March, and we did that for at least 2 full months. Mm-hmm. And then the problem in Burlington right now is at Burlington High School, they've identified PCBs in the building, so they
Oh,
because of indirect.
stop.
Yeah, so we've been kicked
really?
out of our complex, and we're now
Oh my goodness.
What else can
working
happen?
from
My
home.
God.
Yeah, so we spent all this time kind of crafting a
Right.
really good transition back to
For the
school,
kids,
a
right.
safe format. Splitting
I'm
schedules,
sorry.
making
That's
sure.
almost funny.
Oh, I mean, it is funny.
It's like,
We
oh
talk
my God.
about Burlington High School like version 6 now because we've had to be so malleable
Yeah.
in the way we provide instruction. So it's been crazy.
Wow. Well, back to the priorities.
Back to
'cause
the
I don't wanna
priorities.
miss that.
So you know,
priorities that you wanna
there are
take to.
3 things I wanted to focus on, and 2 of which are very related, I think. One, of course, being education, public education, moving forward. There's some challenges that our state is faced with from budgetary point of view, especially as we move into 2022. The second one I'm spending a lot of time with is fiscal responsibility. I grew up in a household that believed very strongly in spending what you have.
There you go. And no more.
But going beyond
Yes,
that
yes.
crosses the line.
Right.
And so I think the challenge, I think that's why being an independent candidate is perfect for me, because in some ways, one topic of public education and then the other topic of fiscal responsibility don't necessarily fall in one camp.
Right,
So it gives me the opportunity to look at both of those.
That's important.
Yeah, and then the last one, I think it's really important to promote business. That the state of Vermont right now, and COVID has put it in the
Right.
limelight. Tourism, big deal, getting absolutely demolished in these last few months, and I think that we need to consider developing more business relationships, bringing in more companies, especially around the social responsibility side. It's good to be green right now.
Right.
Bring those companies to Vermont. Let's create incentives to help them thrive here
Right.
in our state.
And they're good jobs, too.
They're
good
good
paying.
jobs,
Yeah.
And so
When IBM moved out, that was just such a devastation for that whole area. There's big jobs. There's, in Vermont Yankee, we did a lot of shows on Vermont Yankee. That devastated Vernon
yeah.
because of all the high-paying jobs those guys were making, women and guys were making.
Yeah, and if you look at who's some of the biggest employers in the state of Vermont right now, you're talking about the Medical Center of Vermont,
Yeah, right.
or UVM,
Or state Vermont, state of Vermont.
Exactly. That shouldn't be the driving force in my mind of For
I can't imagine an IBM ever coming back, something like that size ever coming back here because of our taxes and regulations and our infrastructure. IBM was desperate for years to get some kind of actual roadway to get it out into the mainstream of traffic, and we just...
Yeah, manufacturing and access to the interstate system is limited.
Right, it's very bad.
Yeah.
So I'm going to skip around with questions. So
I see.
You mentioned college. I am lost with what is going on with the colleges. When Jeb Spalding made his recommendations about closing tech centers in Randolph and having the tech center be in Williston, which to me isn't a campus for anything, and closing. We have 3 universities, which just boggle my mind in this state. And then all the other college campuses. What do you have any idea what they're doing? Do your teachers know what's happening?
Well, I think because Johnson and Linden became Northern
Right.
Vermont.
Don't you think they should have named it Lyndon Johnson? Wouldn't that have been great?
I never thought about it.
Oh my God, kids would have come from everywhere to go to Lyndon Johnson. Sorry.
No, I think that state schools are up against it a little bit, but Castleton appears to be the bright light.
Yep.
I grew up in that part of the state. I grew up in Brandon, Vermont.
Oh, nice.
And Rutland was kind of our go-to place. And Castleton at that time you know, was very kind of a commuter
Right.
experience.
Right.
Now I drive to Castleton and look at what they have done to grow their programs, to build. That's a state school that's thriving.
Yes, right.
In Castleton, which is a little off the beaten path.
Right.
So it can be done. You know, I think a lot of people feel, because Linden's up in the Northeast Kingdom, that it, you know, doesn't really, you know, it's not exposed enough. But Burke Mountain is a wonderful experience for the
And the
students
town
that
of
go
Johnson
there.
is a pretty bustling little place.
Johnson
A lot of
is,
arts and-
yeah. So in my mind, like when I, you know, one of the things I'd like to look at as we head to if and when we head to Montpelier.
Be positive. Yes.
That's right, that's right.
When I get there. in
When I
January.
get there, I think, you know, I think it's possible to consider it a twofold problem, that the cost of education and then the cost of the Vermont post-secondaries that are struggling, the state schools,
Right.
may be able to help one another out. If you looked at the per pupil cost
Right.
for a student, it's pretty parallel to a tuition cost.
Right.
So say you tried a K to 14 model,
Oh,
and
interesting.
you know, you would be offering college credit as a part of public education,
Right.
but it's a direction that I think a lot of people are looking toward. Kids would come out with significant less debt. You could look at how New York is retaining those kids to work in their state. Maybe that's how you can
Right.
promote
Well, I
that
think New York
piece,
still
but-
has those specialty schools, right? I mean, high schools, you can go to one high school for engineering
Right.
and another high school for arts, and there's a couple of others that, so if you go there, that's what, you get immersed in it, and you come out with it, can get a job.
Right, but the SUNY system is something that
Right.
that they can access now through, you know, essentially, if you're a New York resident, you can
Yep, the
access
SUNYs,
those
right,
programs.
then they're good.
It's kind of like, you know, it's not the crazy money I spent to send my first son to college. So,
Really?
you
You
know,
picked a good one, right?
yeah, he went to Clarkson.
Oh, did he really?
Yeah, he's an engineer,
Oh,
so
wonderful,
he's
wonderful.
done.
Well, we did talk about your platform and how you're reaching out to your voters. We did talk about that with the Instagram, and you're going to try Instagram?
Yes,
'Cause
yes.
that's pretty powerful.
Yeah,
Just
well, I'm not there yet, but
Yeah.
I do have the website, and I am hoping to attach what happens here to the
Yeah,
website
and
to help
and your
with
kids
that.
can probably help you take this video and put it into small pieces, because if you just show small pieces, people will look at it sometimes a half
whole
hour or
thing.
an hour. They have to be really
Yeah.
interested to watch it.
Yeah.
And get them to show you how to do live videos. Everybody's doing that. She does it all the time.
Well, you do the live videos on Facebook. That's actually very good. You could do a live going to different houses as you're knocking on the door with your elbow
Exactly.
in your
I'm really,
hazmat suit.
I guess the recommendation was we don't go to people's houses.
Right, exactly.
to knock
There are
on the-
people in Rutland who are doing that, and they're being well received.
Oh,
They
really?
knock on the door with the mask, they back up, person opens the door, and they talk to
And
them,
they
and
talk
then
to them.
they'll leave. They don't hand it to them, they leave it, and the person picks it up,
Interesting.
yeah, and they seem to be getting good response.
I do have a question. The governor said that the economy is not going to come back as he hoped. So what would you like to see happen?
Well, I mean, I think one of the reasons the economy isn't coming back as he had hoped is because there have been restrictions on tourism.
Yes.
And as long as COVID is rearing its head in places, that's going to be remaining as a challenge. So it makes total sense. Again, I think that if you look at the piece that I think is valuable, which is expanding businesses that may thrive in a state like Vermont, that are, you know, socially responsible businesses that may want to go that extra mile, may be able to, you know, incorporate the expense of being here into the benefit of being here. I think that will help. Relying on tourism in an event like this, there is no simple solution other than cross your fingers that a vaccine occurs quickly.
Right. Well, he did open up the hotels for fall season, so maybe that will help, because people can't resist the colors of Vermont.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned 2022 a little while ago, and one of the things we've been talking about with candidates is This year we seem to have squeaked by because we had some leftover money and we had some rainy day funds that we were able to balance the budget. Of course, they haven't done that yet, but they can. And next year, however, that's when COVID's going to really hit. Plus, we have the $4.5 billion in pension liabilities. We've got the colleges that are struggling for money. We have all of our lakes and waters, and the EPA's down our throat to fix it. Lake Champlain being an economic engine to this state. So.
Give us the answer.
Yeah, right, exactly. So, fix it.
Yeah.
No, seriously,
yeah.
what would you be willing to do from a not spending and from a bringing in revenue perspective? Do you have any thoughts about that?
You know, it's a huge challenge trying to figure out the answers for 2022. I do think that the state is kind of hoping, as many states I'm
right.
sure are, that there'll be a federal bailout
right.
of sorts.
Right.
And that seems reasonable given the costs that are associated
right.
to managing COVID. And so I think maybe short term that's what the hope will
right.
be. But as far as the the bigger picture challenges, Lake Champlain, because it's a shared lake,
right.
will always be a challenge until there's a shared responsibility.
Well, they did investigate who's the biggest culprit, and it's us. It's definitely us.
Huh.
So I think the others are looking to Vermont to do their fair share, which is more than their share. So, and the EPA keeps, one day they're going to come in here and fix it, and then we're going to get the bill. And I don't know what amount of money we're talking about, but they're not going to care. So we're going to have to pay for them to fix up Lake Champlain if we don't get serious.
That will be a long conversation for the folks in Montpelier, because there is no quick solution. The ag piece, I think a lot of effort has been made to improve the amount of leaching that occurs from fields, different crop, rotation choices to help with that. But sulfur is still a problem, and then you start talking about different types of runoff, not just the agriculture piece. And, you can create as many incentives to have people change over their septics that live along the lake or to provide municipalities with a better way to treat water, but it all costs
money. Do you know legally
money.
We allow them to put their effluent in the water when they have too much for their tanks, the municipalities? It's legal that they dump their stuff in. I was almost going to say something, that they dump their product in the water.
The product should not be going into Lake Champlain.
But they're allowed to do that. Well, I mean, and then they yell at our farmers, for heaven's sake.
Yeah. And so, I think getting a good reveal of what is causing the problem and how, simply taking steps to move in a direction would be a place to start.
I agree.
Yeah, it's a big problem.
Yeah.
My question is about Black Lives Matter, and we know what they stand for, but how do you feel about the protests that's happening in Burlington and Montpelier, and what are your thoughts about bringing people together?
So I think one of the beautiful things about being in the United States is protesting, as long as it's done peacefully and organized, is the fabric of our of who we are. So I have no issue with protesting, and as someone who works in Burlington, I drive by Battery Park all the time, and honestly, I think the message is, I don't necessarily agree with all of them, but that's not really the issue. I think, how we protest is important. I think that, social responsibility, taking, do I think that there is a need for reform within, police currently? Sure. In fact, police officers I work with, people who are on the forest resource officers and have for 30 years in schools, and that kind of momentum towards community policing and the importance of connecting with families and neighborhoods. Those folks, they want to be a part of their community in a positive way. No one wants to go to work and be the bad guy. And so I think as long as we keep that in mind and offer opportunities for change within the force, you know, I think it's great. Every police officer I've worked with will tell you the same thing. My job now, they'll say, is literally so much harder than it was 10 years ago. You're talking about mental health challenges that are faced on the street, the number of calls they're asked to come to, not being able to rehire personnel, so they're stretched on the what they provide. You know, the days they're working are long.
I think most of them feel like they're social workers
Yeah,
without
yeah.
training, but they're asked to do things, especially with the mental health issue. And you can't tell, looking at somebody sometimes, whether they are dealing with a mental health issue, and sometimes you find out a little too late in the process, and it's a little late to change the course.
Right, and in a city like Burlington, I think they have taken some steps to make reform. I mean, if you have someone in mental health crisis, they've created a relationship with Howard to bring
Howard Mental Health,
therapist supports on site for that individual. That's good reform.
Burlington's always been, the Burlington Police have always been involved with the schools, haven't they? I used to work for the Merchants Bank years ago, and I worked in Burlington, and we always heard discussions about the community officers being in the school, if that's the name they gave them.
Resource
officers, and they really seemed to help because the kids got to know them.
And you know, I've only seen positive results.
How do you think that? What would happen? What do you think has to happen to bring people back together again, to bring peace into the community? And what do you think would be a good idea? You know,
I feel pretty lucky that I live in Vermont, because when I look at the television and I look at parts of our country right now, it's startling what it looks like. You know, I have always been able to disagree with my neighbor, and we love each other. We've always gotten along. You know, you should be able to have differing opinions and still function.
But some of these kids were on Pearl Street blocking the traffic about a week or so ago, and people didn't know what to do. Whether you push ahead, which is, God forbid, some of those kids get hurt, that had started. And so I think, how do you get them to understand how to that peaceful protesting really works for their benefit in the end? Because some of us are getting a little ticked off with their misbehavior. And if they would talk to us like you know, equals, they'll explain to us what they want, we would listen, I think.
I heard at 7 o'clock they walk up and down Church Street and disturb diners and restaurants. And a lot of the restaurants are closing because of that.
And that's just bad. You know, as a teacher, you teach your kids how to gauge the audience and make a presentation based on the, so when you're looking at the audience who is 50, 60, 70 years old, you can't be yelling and screaming in their face words. Sometimes I don't even know what they're saying. And I told you we were at the State House here in Montpelier, and that was that was really frightening. And they didn't make any friends on our side of this lawn, because we were all 40, 50, 60 years old.
Now, is that a protest that's continued the way it has in Burlington?
Oh, this was louder, and I think it would have taken one push, one shove, one something thrown, and it would have just been World War, who knows. It was, it was in your face, and our crowd was old, because it was recognizing police officers and thanking them, and obviously they were defund the police, and it was not, I didn't even know what they wanted. They were just screaming.
You know, I think that yesterday I heard Governor Scott make a comment essentially in reaction to, you know, it was a completely different topic. It was about whether or not they should wait to nominate for the
Oh,
Supreme.
right, for the Supreme Court,
And
right.
his sentiment about why we should wait, I thought was right on the mark.
Well, I didn't hear him. What did
Well,
he say?
he basically was stating that, you know, the norm has been established that you wait till the next person coming in. We learned that 4 years ago. And instead of getting people more in an uproar, we need to show that we can follow through in a consistent manner. This is a Republican
Right.
governor
Well, yeah.
describing the opposite action of a Republican.
Yeah, well, I think what a lot of
president.
Republicans were thinking about that, I want to give you some time to wrap it up, but Obama couldn't run again. He was out, so his term was over. We have a president, for better or worse, who could actually win again. So there's politics there.
Yeah.
And it's a little different than Obama, I think, because Obama wasn't running. He did his 2 terms, and that was it. And and so, you know, the president could win, although there's a lot of people wishing not, but he could be, so that door is open, so I'm sure he wants.
But win or not
right.
win,
You could do it
I think
after.
that the turmoil or
Right.
the social unrest, the
Right.
constant poking, you know, I guess I'm kind of hopeful that because there won't be a 3rd term
Right,
to
right,
run for,
right, I
that maybe
understand.
some of that will subside.
Yeah.
Now, that might be me just,
Yeah, I'm just, well, I'm a little worried about it never subsiding, and I don't know that Biden winning is going to stop it all. I just don't, they're on a roll, those people.
yeah.
I don't know. But anyway, so why don't you ask our last question, and Tom could wrap it up for us?
Well, my last question is, why do you think you're the best candidate for the State House? What do you think?
Is this one?
This is it.
Okay.
Vote for me.
So, you know, I really would love the opportunity to go to Montpelier and represent my community and the people of my community. I'm not sure that I'm the best candidate just because I don't really know all the nuances of my competitors. But what I do bring to the table is 30 years of experience in education, and education is a significant topic moving forward. I do know that none of my colleagues have the inside track on what I've seen year to year, and so that makes me, I think, a valuable asset in Montpelier.
Good job. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer, for joining us. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next week. And in the meantime, keep listening beyond the sound bites.